and welcome to another episode of Get Smarter, an LCE podcast. We got a really special episode for you today. In past episodes, we did one with Beth Torres where we talked about workforce development. We're going to dive into that topic again with a different focus. We're going to be talking about some challenges and best practices in our industrial environment. And we've got really two special speakers here today who can talk just to that. We have Nick Zika and Corey Simpson. I'm going to introduce Corey Simpson first. She is the manager of the Lifecycle Institute, which for those who don't know, it's the learning, leadership, and change management practice here at Lifecycle Engineering. Corey has over 15 years of managerial and team coaching experience. Her specialties are customer service, conflict resolution, and driving sales. Her goal as a leader is to foster a positive work environment that encourages feedback and innovation while educating, inspiring, and motivating. And I can't think of anybody else better to lead the Lifecycle Institute. So welcome to the Get Smarter podcast, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. And now I've got Nick Zika. Nick is a Lifecycle Institute facilitator and a reliability and maintenance strategy and implementation leader here at LCE. Nick has over 12 years experience leading transformations and has led maintenance and operational programs for the DoD, aviation, fluid power supply, paper, and textiles. So he's got lots of various industrial experiences. Nick is a Marine Corps veteran. Thank you for your service, Nick. And as a leader, he has a passion for empowering others towards achieving their business and personal goals. So welcome to the Get Smarter podcast, Nick.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so we thought it would be good to talk about workforce development, which those who are front and center with people who come to the Lifecycle Institute and who work with Lifecycle Engineering Consulting Services, because they're seeing what's out there. And there's certainly a lot of buzz out there now about the skills gap, worker shortage, etc. So I wanted to ask Nick our first question in today's podcast episode, because you're working with reliability leaders and frontline team members, and you teach reliability and maintenance professionals across a variety of industries. So what would you say are some observations that you've had or that you've made about how people are approaching workforce management and their team's development?
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, I think that it starts with the simple observation that everybody has of, hey, we have a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly obvious at this point, especially post-COVID, where we've lost a lot of our experienced people. We have a lot of turnover. That skills gap or skills deficit, as I like to call it, is becoming more and more obvious. It's starting to affect our business processes in more obvious ways, more significant ways. And so I think the acknowledgement of that as a real paramount problem is kind of across the board, and it's really hitting every industry. That being said, I think there's kind of a scramble right now to figure out what the best way to approach that gap is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some commonalities among needed skills in maintenance and reliability across different industries, but there's a lot of varying degrees of success in terms of training that we provide in-house, training that we outsource, formal versus informal training, and whether or not those efforts and investments are actually panning out in measurable ways in our business. And so that's kind of the conundrum, right? And it's something that I think a lot of the students that we see here in the Institute can empathize with. Listen, we're spending a lot of time talking about training and the need to train more, but we're not really seeing the benefits of that, right? So what is the problem, or how do we prioritize?
Right. No, I think you're right. Everybody wants to talk about the skill set and then the skills gap, but what are the skills that we have? What are the skills that we truly need? And what's the best way to address those? And it may be a multitude of different approaches and methodologies. but I think you mentioned something about you're not seeing the results, you're not seeing the benefits. So that's the missing piece. Corey, do you have anything to add to Nick's observations? As the manager of the Life Cycle Institute, you've seen a lot of students come through our classes, worked with a lot of companies who opt for life cycle facilitators to go to their site, to deliver training. What have you been encountering from those students or participants who go through the certification course?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway we see and hear is these certification programs and our classes really help our students grow their skills and their tools for success, which in turn, lead to more opportunities within their organization or beyond. We also hear about our training aiding in employee retainment. So, let's face it, when you invest in continued training and education for your employees, they feel valued and that their contributions to the organization matter. I've always said people are our biggest assets.
No, that's absolutely true. And so, to connect that to what Nick says, it's understanding, the needs that you have in terms of what are the needed skills, what are the needed competencies, focusing on that. But at the same time, Corey, what you're saying is it's really important to pick the programs that are going to show results in terms of how people change their behavior, in terms of how they grow their skills, in terms of what they give back to the organization after they've completed that training. And I think you brought up another really important point too about offering developmental opportunities for the workforce is a way to keep people in there and keep people in your plants, in your facilities, to offer them opportunities to grow. So we've got this pressure, out there, which is, oh my gosh, we're losing people every day, we're losing the skills, high turnover, early, retirements are happening too fast for us to replace the skills. But then we also have this great opportunity, which is, offering the new workforce or offering our existing workforce opportunities to grow and to gain new skills. So Nick, what do you think are, because the people who are going to be making these decisions, it's no longer, used to be HR, big HR, big corporate HR, or, there used to be a lot more HR people, even at plant sites, et cetera, that helped make these decisions. And those, those positions or that function is no longer such a driving force, especially when you get down to skills, trades, and maintenance and reliability professionals. So we're talking about our reliability engineers, our planners, and our schedulers. Those decisions go into usually go to the industrial leaders or middle managers who these are their direct reports, and they're, in charge of developing their skills. So what do you think are some challenges as they try to optimize their operational performance, as they try to embark on things like digital transformation to help fill that skills gap, to perhaps automate some tasks that used to be done by individuals, but also with that new technology comes a need for new skills and comes a need for new competencies. So tying that all together, what have you seen as some major challenges that people are asking questions about in courses or when you're on site consulting with them?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot to unpack there, right?
I
There's a
know.
lot of moving pieces. It's a lot of moving pieces in any business, but especially now, like you said, trying to navigate this from a training perspective is difficult. I think certainly there's always the instinct to try and automate or reduce or mitigate the amount of specialty skills that we need, right? And so sometimes we use a strategy for that where we examine what our kind of highest risk areas of our process are, our highest risk processes, or those
Hmm.
processes in which we are at most risk of having a skill deficiency. And we kind of focus our efforts there, right? But I think something you said earlier really hits it on the head. None of this works without us first really understanding and quantifying the skills and the training that we need. That's got to come
Right.
first. That's got to come first, because if we can't quantify exactly what we need from a skills perspective, and then be able to draw the correlation, be able to connect that in our process map to where that skill is going to contribute and how we're going to measure it, right? Then we're really just kind of shooting in the dark. I mean, we can spend all the money we want on training and skill development, right? But if we don't have a plan for how to execute that or turn that into an actionable item in a way that benefits or moves our process forward, right? Then we're kind of spinning our wheels,
Right.
if that
We're
makes sense.
making ourselves feel better. We're doing the right thing. We're training our people, but I like what you said. It reminds me of like an asset or a process criticality assessment, right? Like, let's find 20%, of our most needed skills in terms of our human criticality analysis. And then also looking at our processes and thinking about what skills are needed for today, for tomorrow, for our business strategy. So I think it's probably one of the easiest times ever to be in a maintenance and reliability program, right? I mean, this is no, 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 I don't think so. I think Nick, you and I have talked before about it's a really difficult time to be
Immensely challenging. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's help our listeners out then a little bit here. Let's dig a little deeper. Now, let's say, okay, we've done a good job of, assessing where our people are, what skills we have, and then we've also taken a stab at looking at our most critical business processes and which ones we do have on schedule to potentially apply some new or advanced technologies to, or, which ones are the critical areas where we are missing a lot of skills because let's say that, those particular individuals have, left our workforce or what have you. So we've done that. We've said, okay, these are the things that we want our people to raise their competency level at, to become more skilled at. So how do you, I'm going to ask both of you this, how do you measure the success of a training program or a competency building process? And Corey, I'm actually going to ask you first.
Yeah. So our certification programs produce ROI that far surpass the cost of the program that we've seen over the years. Particularly our reliability engineering certification program typically shows, I think, a average like 6 to 10 time return on their learning investment. So that's, when you look at it that way, it's really a no-brainer and a good way to shine within your organization. Also, we have a lot of prior students who've done our certification programs and passed our exams, and we'll hear back from them maybe a couple years down the road that they've been promoted, or they've advanced in their career, and that's that to me is a huge identifier of it being a successful program.
So Corey, those are impressive descriptions of ROIs and feedback from students who go through the certification. What do you think is different about these certification programs, or what enables that kind of ROI?
Well, I think there's a multitude of factors, but I think there's a few main ones. I think, first of all, our instructors are, leading industry experts. They've lived, breathe, and die by maintenance and reliability, and they're really great at building the relationships with the students in the classrooms. They tie in lots of real world experience and war stories, if you will. That really makes for a great class experience. Yeah, and so our reliability engineering certification program, our students at the end go through a work product, which essentially they'll choose an asset in their plant. They'll do a whole reliability centered maintenance study on it, including a criticality analysis. From there, the results are huge.
Wow. So they're solving a real problem
Oh yeah,
at their site
absolutely.
through this program, and they have a coach because they've got the facilitator there to help guide them through the RCM process, and other aspects of that. Tell me, have you experienced, the students promoting this in their own company? Is there a way that they could use this to help grow their own careers, at their sites? Have you experienced that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes the reward is so high that it's, implemented throughout the whole
Throughout
organization.
their whole organization.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
that gets management attention, I'm guessing.
absolutely, yeah. And a lot of times the students that have successfully completed the reliability engineering certification pass it on to other, maybe new engineers who are in their organization.
Yeah,
And
sure. So they become the
yeah,
leaders. They
yeah,
become
Yeah.
the mentors, the reliability engineering or the reliability leader in the
Mhm.
organization. So I think, just to wrap that up, I heard, the facilitators, they bring relevancy with their teaching. So they're teaching these competencies, but it's not just philosophical, it is real world, and the
Yeah.
facilitators are able to bring that on the job relevancy into the classroom, so much so that by the end of the certification, they've solved a real problem in their plant, and they've built that credibility. So, Nick, I want to talk to you about what this looks like when you get back to your site, when, from a business perspective, when folks have come back from the training, they've completed, their certification. How do you quantify the results of that training, and what does it look like, IRL, in real life, when you get back from being educated?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think there's a couple of things to look at. Number one, are we able to measure the proficiency, in and of itself? So, in a lot of ways, especially the Institute provides a certificate, and we help measure that for you. But certainly back in house, right? If we have a training program that's actually able to assess our skill level, that's one piece, right?
Right.
It's
Have they
certainly a
changed their
validating
behavior? Are they
piece.
doing things differently? And what is happening because of that, right?
Absolutely. And the next higher level piece is, are we able to complete the business processes with which we use this skill, right? So
Mm-hmm.
presumably the reason that we go to training is so that we can execute our business process as required, right? Are we able to do that? Are we
Mm-hmm.
able to do that? And if so, presumably, assuming that our business process was built correctly, our business metrics should improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
any good business process presumably will increase our business metrics and our goals. And so are we seeing that? Are we seeing a correlating trend?
When you come to an institute class that's outside of your facility, you meet people who are, in industrial operations, potentially dealing with similar issues, maybe have some best practices to share. So there's often like a community, I guess, that could be built in the classroom. Is that something that could be replicated on site? Is that something that could be replicated, in organizations?
Absolutely. Generally speaking, one of the greatest benefits that we get at the institute in these classes is that we do get a conglomeration of colleagues across every industry, facing similar challenges, similar problems, and we're able to draw on each other's experience, right? We're able to see what worked and what didn't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we take that back to our business, we start refining our own processes. We're going to have lessons learned, right? It's our responsibility as professionals, right, to
Mm-hmm.
identify and measure and learn what works and what doesn't for our particular business, right? And to be
Yeah.
that resource in the future. The truth is, guys, process optimization applies to every field, not just maintenance and reliability. And
Mm.
what you find is that a lot of the improvements in maintenance and reliability don't just come from skill increases, they come from process optimization, right?
Right.
Um, as part of those, new, higher skilled, newly trained, right, driven folks getting back to their business and saying, listen, we have the skills we need now. What's the missing piece, right? What's the roadmap now to use these skills? And as they kind of optimize those processes in light of their new training, right, they then can kind of take that practice and spread it to other business processes outside of maintenance and reliability. And that's really, that's where we start catching our stride, influencing others, our other colleagues in other departments, in other sites. And it's really a beautiful thing when you get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Building that symphony, right? So giving people the space and the opportunity to use the new skills and be brave, let people start the process and see what happens. And then, gosh, you'll have a whole cohort of professionals at your own site.
Be
Everybody
brave. Yeah, I
benefits.
love that. I love that saying. I love that saying, be brave or be courageous, because really, and I know you mentioned it from a standpoint of the learner,
Yeah.
but I actually think that that's very instructive and enlightening from the perspective of the leader, right? Because you do need to be a little courageous, right? Train and empower those folks that are executing these processes and let them go, let
Let
them
them go.
optimize, right?
Let,
And that does take some courage, but it is a beautiful thing, and really a force multiplier when you get a trained, driven workforce, right? Evaluating all of your deficiencies as a team.
yeah,
Really,
working together.
a
Yeah.
thousand minds are better than one, right? Don't make the mistake as a leader of thinking that you have all the answers. Train them and let them find the answers.
Exactly. And listen to him. I think I just got a tear in my eye on that. So, the Life Cycle Institute has been around now. It's about to celebrate the 20th anniversary. Yay, that's a big
Woohoo.
milestone. But what's changed over the time? What is the Life Cycle Institute and just educational philosophies or methods and how Life Cycle Institute as an educating body kind of functions, and what products and learning are they doing now that maybe didn't exist 20 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've certainly evolved in many ways to meet the needs of the market and the world around us. I think most notably in the past 5 or so years, creating our self-paced e-learning, our virtual instructor-led classes. This really helped make distance, travel, and a more limited budget not as big of an issue anymore for those interested in taking our training classes.
Okay. So, although we are, grappling with the stress on how to address, our skills needs for today and for tomorrow, there are more options than ever, right? So that's great. There are more options than ever. That's also another stressor, right? Because now you have more, you want to make the right choices, and the right choices for your workforce and or for your talent. So that brings me back to employee engagement. And that is a different, that looks different, or may need to be adjusted for each individual, right? There are some common themes, in employee engagement. One of them is just getting the opportunity to grow your skills, to have developmental opportunities. But I want to talk about specifically as we're upskilling, reskilling, providing these professional development opportunities. Nick, I'll point this question to you. What do you think are some effective ways to keep employees motivated and engaged in today's environment where this is not a one and done training? I mean, everything that we're talking about today, is to reach a certain, we've talked about it in the context of reaching certain goals, or we've identified these skills as needed skills. Let's go ahead and do it now. Okay, we did it. We're done. Yay. No, I don't think that's how our world is today. We have to be continuous learners, right? So, Nick, how can we keep morale up? How can we keep employees engaged as we ask them to be interested in learning?
Yeah. Yeah, good question. How do we keep morale up? That's $1 million question, right? Engagement is really, but I think engagement's a
And it's
big part
not
of
just
it.
pizza parties.
Is it
It's not
no?
just pizza parties. Absolutely, really well said, Corey. I'm glad you said that. No, engagement's a big part of it. Engagement is an X factor, right? You're certainly not going to have an effective training program if you don't have a high level of engagement. Um, I think part of that starts with people understanding and believing in the value, right? Believing in the value
Ah,
of the training. Um, Sometimes, in myself included, we like to harp on the value of training from a business perspective, but sometimes as an individual, it helps to understand the value of training on, for you personally on an
right.
individual level, right? I think at the end of the day, most people want to win, right? Most people want to win. Most people
Yeah.
want to succeed in whatever it is they're doing. And I think when we can see um, our colleagues around us able to successfully uh, be successful in their roles, advance in their careers, right?
Right.
And kind of connect the dots of see the skills and the training that are required to do so, and then have access to those skills and training ourselves, right? I think that just kind of
Mhm.
organically will build some engagement surrounding continuous learning and some interest in that.
Right. And or solving a problem. Like it can also be an intrinsic, it could be an intrinsic thing about, hey, we're contributing to the future strategy of the operations. I'm playing a part in that. But I mean, even just down to, hey, we solved that problem. That failure has been kicking our butts,
Yeah.
and we were able to band together and solve that problem. We were able to stop that chronic failure, or at least make it happen less frequently, decrease the
Yeah,
frequency of
yeah, and
occurrence.
listen, don't underestimate the power of closing your mouth, right, and listening to the people around you and asking them the question, what training do you need?
Right.
Why are we not winning, right? What do we need to win? What do you
What do
need?
we
What
need
do
to
you
win?
need to
Yeah.
win, right? A lot of times if we're not successful in whatever role it is that we're doing, a lot of times you'll have a pretty good idea, right, of what it is you need to be successful, or at least the direction that you need to go, right? That's a
Hmm.
very powerful way to build engagement, is to just simply ask the question, hey, how can we help? How can we make this
Hmm.
better? How can we help you win, right? That's
Right.
that's a tremendously powerful tool.
No, absolutely. And it goes back to what we were discussing earlier, about the leaders and the managers, who need to look to provide these opportunities to have their ears open and an open door to listen and hear what people believe they need to win. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask Corey, what advice would you give to our listeners who are considering building up their training and workforce development programs? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, you'll never regret investing in your people. It's a mutually beneficial endeavor. And as I said earlier, people really are our biggest assets.
Yeah, that's very wise. Now, Nick, I'm going to ask you a similar question, but with a little bit more bite. What about those who are, they're already investing? They're doing what Corey said. They're investing in their most valuable assets, their people assets, but they're not sure that they're getting results. What advice would you give to those folks?
Yeah, that's a really cogent question. And I think it has to start with if you're already investing in training and you're not getting the results that you need, then it's really time to take a harder look at your business processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
As leaders, one of our responsibilities is to help facilitate good processes. Remember, you can have all the skill and talent in the world on your team, but if you don't provide a playbook, right? If you don't provide a
Right.
playbook, a strategy that leverages how to use those skills in the right way, then you're not going to win many games. So if you're going to invest in training your people, but you
Mm-hmm.
provide them no way to win the game by using
Right.
those skills, then they're going to inevitably seek out a different team that they can win on.
Yeah, it's going to be frustrating, right?
Absolutely.
And I loved that you mentioned the word playbook. I know that that is one of the reasons why LCE built our LC Smarter playbook, was to provide those definitions, to provide those best practices out there so people could take them and understand what good looks like. You know, this is what good looks like. Here is where I am. Here's where we want to be. And now let's create a plan to get there and train and develop our people on how that they can be successful and win. So, gosh, Nick and Corey, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a few takeaways that I want to mention, a few sound bites from our episode for our listeners today. Be brave. Be brave. When you've selected, some good training experiences for your workforce, let them try those skills and give them opportunities to use those skills and seek results when they get back to the site. Another is that you need to know as a business, you need to know the business reasons and the business value of whatever learning or training investment you're making for your folks. But the people need to also understand the value and what is that value of the training to me, what's in it for me. Next, listen. Most people want to win and succeed, and it's validating, to advance your career. So ask and listen to your people. What do you think we need to win? What do we need here so that we can all have a win and be playing from that same playbook? So thank you so much for your time. And we are going to have some episode notes. With this episode, we're going to be sharing some resources for you listeners. So please make sure that you look in the episode notes about workforce development. Okay, any last words, Nick and Corey?
You guys can do this.
Yes.
You can win this game.
You can win this game. Be brave, win this game. And with that, until next time, listeners, let's stay smarter, people.